this is Dr. Pam Molinawersi, member of BFU Georgia, and this is a constitutional summary for the layman. Let me upfront state a disclaimer that this presentation is not an official statement or representation of the Constitution. It is created for informative purposes only for BFU Georgia chapter. I would like to encourage everyone to read the Constitution document in its entirety, and it can be found on the BFU website at bfu-usa.org. The Constitution is divided into chapters, articles, and sections. Chapter 1 pertains to the name, aims, and objectives of the Union. Article 1 states that we are BFU USA and that the traditional name will be Likibumi. Article 2 states our aim as a group to bring Bui people together in the U.S., to positively contribute to economic, social, and cultural developments, to unite and work cooperatively, and to carry out humanitarian efforts in Bui and other areas of Cameroon. Article 3 states that no problem shall be litigated unless first given a chance to be heard at the national level. In other words, no member shall seek to sue another member or the union without first giving a chance for the national executive to hear the problem and try to solve it. Article 4 states that the motto shall be Wirduwir Biwir. Chapter 2 is in reference to membership, and it states that unless otherwise stated in the document or chapter bylaws, membership shall be open to all persons by birth, relationship, or affiliation to Bui and residing in the United States. Article 6 indicates the categories of membership as being active members, student members, and honorary members. Active members regularly take part and are financially current. Student members are determined by each chapter, so each chapter has the liberty to determine what they consider a student member. And honorary members are open by invitation by members and have to be agreed upon by the national executive. Section 1 of Chapter 2 states that the registration fee shall be $25, and this is a one-time payment, and annual dues every year is $50 and should be paid to the National Treasurer by July 31st or December 31st of each year. Chapter 3 is in reference to the organs of the Union, and in Article 7 it states that there are 5 branches of the Union: the General Assembly, National Executive Board, Constitutional Committee, local chapters, and the Advisory Board. Article 8 states that the General Assembly, which is composed of all registered members, is the supreme body of the Union and shall meet once a year or in special session. Section 1 explains the conditions under which a special General Assembly meeting can be called, so you can read those details in Section 1 of Chapter 3. Section 2 is in reference to the annual convention, and it states that it is held in the last weekend of July. Elections are held at conventions. The National Executive and the National Convention Committee plans and hosts conventions. The NCC determines the hosting site, and each chapter shall host on a lottery cycle. This is the hosting schedule that is contained in the Constitution document, and as you can see, we are following the hosting schedule as per conventions. Section 3 of Chapter 3 indicates distribution of proceeds from national conventions, and it states that the host chapter shall receive 40% of all proceeds after overhead costs are paid, and national shall receive 60% after overhead costs are paid. It also calls for the national executive to publish a financial report within 60 days of the convention so that all members may see how much money was raised or proceeds, and what was the 40% that was given to host chapter and the 60% that was retained by the national. Article 9 indicates that there are 6 standing committees in the Union: Finance, Auditing, Cultural Affairs, Development, Education and Scholarship, and Fundraising. In Article 10, it details that the Constitutional Committee is composed of 9 elected members, and they are elected for a 2-year term, whose duties include to ensure the observation of provisions of the Constitution, conduct elections, ensure the smooth transfer of authority, and to receive, study, and report to the General Assembly suitable recommendations regarding constitutional matters. In Article 11, it's in reference to local chapters, and it describes them as local branches in the USA. They must abide by the BFU USA Constitution. However, they could make their own bylaws, providing they are consistent with the national Constitution. And chapters wishing to become chapters should request that in writing to the National Executive, and the National Executive then approves the formation of that chapter. Article 12 describes the advisory board as being composed of one chapter leader from each chapter, and this chapter leader is nominated by the chapter and names sent forward to the National Executive. Their charge is to guard, promote, and protect the culture, traditions, and moral values of the Union. Chapter 4 describes officers and their duties, and the elected officers include the President, the Vice President, the Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, Treasurer, Financial Secretary, Organizing Secretary, and the Assistant Organizing Secretary. That chapter also indicates the duties of each of those offices. Chapter 5 is in reference to meetings, standing orders, and quorums. Meetings of the General Assembly shall be called by the Secretary and presided over by the President. So actually the Secretary should call the meeting and the President presides over the meeting. Committees may call their own meetings by their own rules. However, if something is found to be out of order by the General Assembly, they can nullify the committee decisions and meetings. A quorum at a General Assembly consists of representatives from 75% of the registered chapters in the Union. So, for example, if there are 10 chapters registered in the Union, only representatives from 7.5 chapters need be present in order for a quorum to be reached. Chapter 6 indicates the finance area, and it states that BFU may derive income from membership registration and dues, proceeds from fundraisers, donations and gifts, proceeds from sale of memorabilia, and levies when necessary. Chapter 7 describes elections and by-elections, and in Article 16 it states that elected office is for a 2-year term, and in Section 1, elections take place at the National Convention in August. I think this actually needs to be changed to be consistent with the last weekend in July. Section 2, if a position is vacated, the national president has the authority to appoint a successor until the next general election. Voting is by direct secret ballot, and in Section 4, nominations shall be tendered for president 30 days before the convention. In Section 5, it states that the presidential nominees shall submit their cabinet at the beginning of a convention meeting. So in actuality, General Assembly votes are only for the position of president, and then the president submits his or her slate of nominees that will complete his or her cabinet. In Section 6, it states that the chairperson of the Constitutional Committee shall submit a list of all nominees to the Secretary General no later than 20 days prior to the convention, and the Secretary will publish this list for all members to see. In Article 17, it states that the following the following persons cannot hold office or be candidates for nominations for office, and they include honorary members or financially inactive members. Article 18 is a repeat of Article 9 and simply describes again the standing committees. Chapter 8 is in reference to dissolution of the Union. So if the Union must cease to exist, an extraordinary general meeting must be convened, and 75% of registered members must vote in favor of dissolving the Union. So 75% of all registered members must vote in favor of dissolution. And then all properties or funds shall be used to first pay all liabilities due at the date of dissolution, and then the balance be sent to a charitable organization as agreed upon by the General Assembly. Chapter 9 is in reference to amendments and bylaws, and this document may be amended by the General Assembly provided that the proposals are sent into the Constitutional Committee chair within 30 days, members are duly informed of all proposals, and amendments must be carried by a 75% in favor of vote. Amendments that are voted down cannot be proposed at a subsequent General Assembly meeting. So in other words, any amendment that is declined or voted down cannot be heard again until another 4 years. Chapter 10 clearly defines what is meant by Constitution, Boy Family Union USA, Lee Kibumi, and Weir Duwir Biwir. This last slide includes the new amendments from the 2007 General Assembly meeting. The first one states that bylaws should be created to handle administrative changes that govern the operations. So actually the bylaws is a new amendment or a new addition from 2007, so we should be working on creating bylaws. And the second is that members seeking presidency must belong to a local chapter. So this is a new part of the Constitution that is in force right now. Thank you for listening, and I hope you are now educated to make decisions and proposals that would better the Union.